If I just start with apologies for absence. We've got apologies, I know, from Mary Newton and from Carlo. And
that's correct, Leader. In addition to Councillors Newton and Guglielmi, I can also offer apologies this morning from Councillor Terry Allen and Councillor Mark Stevenson and Councillor Ivan Henderson.
And I should just say we do clash this morning with the Holocaust Memorial event, which I know obviously is taking place here, and the chairman of the council is involved with that. In fact, it was on the news as I was driving into Town Hall this morning that that's a national event, obviously commemorating the memorial. Today is the anniversary of the day that the death camp at Auschwitz was liberated. So I think an appropriate time for quiet reflection. If we just take a few moments to ponder that one. Good morning, Terry. Welcome. And if I crack on with the minutes of the last meeting, can I sign those as true and accurate record? That seems to be agreed. Thank you. I'll get on with doing that. Item 3, declarations of interest. The members are, as you'll be aware, invited to declare your interests and the nature of them. Item 4 is announcements by the leader. I've got any announcements, have I? No, I haven't. Yeah, not anymore. Item 5 is announcements by cabinet members. I don't think I'm aware of any of that. We have got a full and packed agenda with, a budget and a few other things on there. So we've got a lot of meaty stuff to get through. So I'm going to try and crack through at a reasonable pace, if that's okay, just so we get done in a reasonable time. Item 7 is the ONS committee's scrutiny of the budget. I think first and foremost, which is on page 15, the recommendation there is on the bottom of page 17 that the recommendations by the Resources and Services Committee be noted, and then it be further noted that the response to the portfolios there to be considered as part of 10 and 11 on the agenda, which I'm happy to move. And I think, and add to that, my thanks and thanks to the cabinet to the members of the Resources and Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee who did an amazing job. It's a thorough and exhaustive piece of work that they do, going through the budget in such detail. And I felt, certainly from my own appearance, if you like, before them, that they were constructive, they were challenging, but they were positive, and they were asking the right questions. And we need, scrutiny is a good thing. It's a good thing, and we need that. So I welcome and thank them for the work they put in. And we'll take on board their recommendations and points when we come to the budget and further items later on in the agenda. Are we happy to agree that? Yeah. Thank you. Who seconded it, by the way? Michael did. Sorry, I'm just being pedantic. Item 8 is the Freeport East Progress and Agreement of the Memorandum of Understanding. I made a statement on this at Council Tuesday, just a few days ago. So I don't intend going into huge detail again about Freeport East, other than to again thank the Working Party, who have definitely made this a better project from the point of this council, because as the Chief Executive was saying, I very often bring up to the Freeport East board things, ideas, proposals that have come out of the Working Party. A, because we get good ideas come out of that I wouldn't necessarily on my own have come up with or thought of. But B, because the way that we're doing this on this council, it's not party political. This isn't my project or my baby as the leader or my political party's idea. This is something that the whole council is committed to and signed up to. So if in May we get a complete change of politics, whatever happens, it's entirely likely that will carry on. And the Freeport East board knows there's that continuity of wanting this project to succeed and to carry on being successful. And at council, I mentioned in my statement how one of the vice chancellors from the University of Essex had said at the Freeport East reception that this is one of the most exciting projects the government, or probably the most exciting project that the government has announced in the east of England since the university was announced in the early 1960s, 60 odd years ago. And I completely concur with that. And it's interesting how success begets success, because on an unrelated point, but I'm slipping this in here, I noticed, yes, I saw a tweet yesterday that the University of Essex, because of the £20 million Levelling Up Fund success, they're now advertising. They've got a job advert out for a professorial chair. They're recruiting a professor to look at coastal regeneration with a view to this project here in Clacton. And that's a fantastic example, I think, of success begetting further success. And I am genuinely really excited and optimistic about the future, not just of Clacton with that project, but of the Greater Harwich area, if I can call it that, the 45-kilometre radius that has been drawn on the map that encompasses the whole of Tendring, that's going to benefit from this Freeport East project. It's genuinely, truly exciting. And I said to the working group, we've all tried to manage expectations, because we all know that in and around the Barside Bay area, the expectations have been raised and dashed so many times that it's really cruel and unfair almost to the people there. But at this point, and I said this to the working group, if we can't be excited about this project now, then I don't know when we can be. I think this is as exciting as it gets, and it's, we've got a real direction of travel now that's positive and it's up, and I'm really, really optimistic. There's a recommendation there on page 22. I am happy to go into more detail if anyone wants, but I'm just going to move it as written. I'll take a second and then I'll go to Terry. Yeah, Paul seconded it. Terry.
Yes, I mean, I was on the working group, and I may have sounded a bit negative, but that was just because it's been going on so long. Even in my past thing, it started on that back there, but I really feel in my water that it's really, excuse the pun, but that something is going to happen and we can get rid of the water on Barside Bay and fill it in. But all I hope it all goes now as the programme, and there's no sort of hold-ups because of what might happen here or at Westminster and all that. And I don't think so, because it's sort of near enough signed, still delivered. I just don't want to be as we always are to Essex, the poor relation. I would like this council, not me personally, to be up there with Suffolk and the other areas and getting our fair share. Because if it wasn't for our deprived areas here, I don't think we would have ticked those so many boxes. And that was the main reason. It's the work aspirations of people in this area, and with all the new housing, and it's sort of, we start to get some nice aspirational housing here. We're going to attract more professional people, and that's what we want in our area now. And they will bring along other jobs, and that's the main thing about this is work for the local residents. Thank you.
Just to be clear, because you sort of apologising for coming across as negative. Well, don't apologise, Terry, because if anyone thinks that the working group is we all sit around sort of singing Kumbaya, holding hands, we don't. It's there's a lot of really tough questions put in, most of which I'd hasten to add, I don't know the answers to, but luckily we've got officers that we can defer to. But the members there are asking the really tough questions, because they need, if you're going to go out and sell it, especially as an opposition councillor, you need to know what you're talking about, and you do need to know what the answers are to those tough questions. So the working groups, they're quite tough, actually. They're quite a grilling. But we leave there with a united view on what we want to achieve going forward, and I really like that. I think it's one of the best groups I've been involved in. So thanks to people like everyone who sits on it, basically the whole group, really passionate about this district and about finally delivering, but realistic about the challenges and the problems we face, because it's not all going to be a stroll in the park till the sun upwards. It's going to be tough. There's going to be reversals. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be problems along the way, because as Terry said, there has been for the last 20 years on the path to getting to where we've got to now. So Gary, anyway.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree with Councillor Allen and you, Chairman. This is a huge, big project, and it puts Tendring on the map, and it's going to be a big infrastructure project. It's going to go on for years. It will. The people that will get jobs are not in primary school yet. They are the ones that will benefit 30 odd years from now on, and also it will have a ripple effect. It will bring in businesses, investment. It will encourage people to move here, and bring up their family here, and it's the future of our district. And it's nice that Councillor Allen said that it's we were not seen in the past. We're out on the limb, out on the edge of Essex, and I think this project, Freeport East, will say, look, go to tendering, invest in tendering. The future's there in the east.
Well said, Gary. Ian.
Thanks. If I can just pick up a couple of things. First of all, on your point, I always think with the centre of tendering, the centre of tendering is the centre of Essex, but that's just a personal view. On a serious note, is that what Councillor Allen said about the Freeport, the Harwich site is bigger than all of the rest of the Freeport site put together. So it really is kind of like front and centre of tendering and what we do. And I think that there is going to be some of that is going to be, as we know, is about over a period of time, because of course it's construction, there's work as businesses, but some of the work which we can do now, which you just touched on, Councillor Scott, is around skills, is around how do we create the environment for the schools so that actually those careers people start thinking about now for 9-10-year-olds for when they're 15, 18, 21, and they're making those different decisions around those. And we have got a group which is part of the Freeport as a subgroup, which is about skills, is about taking those forward. And some of the comments which were made at the working group have all at tendering's working group have already been fed back into that, which you made only the other day. So just to reinforce what the leader said, is that the points that are made in the working group are taken back to the board, but also to the working groups.
Finally, on that one, I just want to credit Gary there with a great quote. You just said, Gary, that Freeport East puts tendering on the map. I think it's a brilliant quote. You're absolutely spot on. It puts us at the centre of the map as well. Terry, do you want to come back really?
Sorry, we can't sit back on our laurels with this now. And I think it's up to Councillor Williams' committee now, because she's worked with the schools and the primary schools, bringing projects forward on well-being, which has been very successful, and it works doing it that way, is now itching to this and make the schools aware. Because I as a governor and a chairman of the community board at another set of schools, is that I will be pushing this on those there, that the teachers and the curriculum should be geared towards this. And I think, along with Anastasia and yourself, you can do a number on this, is to put it out there, because you've got the Tendering Education Board. All this is keep putting it into the idea, so it's in everyone's head. And so when they go there, they talk about it. It does work. It's worked here in the past on different projects, and it can work again. But we've got to get out there. And the best way is into the schools. Thank you.
Okay, well, just agree that motion, that recommendation was moved and seconded. Thanks. The next item is on page 53, which is mine. It's the highlight priority actions towards corporate plan themes. I'd like to move the recommendation on page 54. Pretty straightforward. I won't go into huge detail at this point. If I could just take a second, Linda, thank you. Yeah, we've got various projects there. Just to be clear, I know it's fairly obvious, but some of the projects have got some, they've got a red, amber, green rating. The projects themselves are mostly green or amber, although some of the sort of specific items underneath them might be red or amber at the moment. But I think it's quite clear and progress looks good. Any comments? Are we happy to agree that? Yeah, thanks. I'll move on to the item 10 is the updated general fund financial forecast, which is basically what we like to call the budget, I think. On page 77, Carlo's not here because he's at Essex doing important Essex things. But recommendation on page 78, which again, the budget has been much discussed. It's gone through days and hours of the Resources and Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It's based on a 3% increase, which bizarre, ironically, because of the prevailing rate of inflation, is probably the lowest council tax increase in real terms this council has ever set, given that inflation is running about 11%. We're 8 percentage points below inflation with that. So but to be fair, to raise the council tax more than that would require a referendum. That is the maximum we can raise it easily. So we're doing our bit to keep pace. We are obviously this is a very sensible, very prudent budget given the very, very difficult financial situation that the council faces, that all local government, all local authorities are facing at the moment. But it's realistic and it's sort of open and transparent. We're aware of other authorities that have got into terrible financial difficulties by basically having a sort of a head in the sand approach to dire economic outlook, and you just can't do that. So this is an eyes wide open budget. It's a good budget for tendering, but it also sets it up for whoever comes in to run the council in May, whether that's exactly the same, completely different, or somewhere in between. The new homes bonus is unallocated in there. A sum of, sorry, how much was it, Richard? £1.2 million. So that, if you like, it gives some wriggle room for new administration to direct where they choose, whoever that may be. And yeah, I'll take a seconder. Jeff, thank you. Any comments, Terry?
It's not a comment, it's a question, really. Personal question, if you allow me. As a council, how much do you think we should keep in reserve, just in case everything hits the fan? What would the normal percentage be?
I'll give you an accountant's answer to that. There isn't a set percentage. Close up, put it there. There isn't a set percentage anymore. It's based on a risk assessment, and a risk assessment goes through each risk that we would face, and we're fairly comfortable that the current figure of 4 million is about right for the uncommitted reserves. Yeah.
So you've got, say, we've got 4 million in case it's down for 6 months running costs, or
now the detail behind that, it's got things like inflationary, lack of income, all different risks to the forecast. There is an assessment against each element. So we don't do it like this covers 6 months worth of income. It's much more detailed behind that. So which we update every year. And at the present, the £4 million is we still think we're comfortable with. Yeah.
If I just sort of bring it back to what is the impact though for our council compared to what our spend is now. So if you think about a household budget, and if somebody used to earn £22,000 a year, it's gone down to £14,000 a year, and now it's going down to £12,000 a year. That's the equivalent of us 22 million to 14 million to 12 million. That's going to have an impact on somebody's household budget just as the same as it's going to have a significant impact on the councils. So picking up Richard's point is, what are the level of reserves? But actually this also is about how do we navigate our way through reducing budgets, how we protect services, or how we make difficult decisions. So I think that's that equation people can get about what's the impact on your standard of living, about how it's going to do, and that's the equivalent for us as a council. That's how the reduction in our funding.
And there will inevitably be some very tough decisions in coming months and years for whoever finds himself running this council, and indeed probably any local authority. Some really tough decisions. There's, people say, oh, we should just focus on the statutory services, but even amongst the things that we are compelled to do by law, there's how much money we spend on doing that. So bin collection, we have to collect the bins, but some councils are talking about a free weekly bin collection, and those kinds of things, they start to bite and they start to get painful, and there are going to have to be some tough and unpleasant decisions that this council contemplates going forward. And it needs to be brave, and it needs to have its eyes wide open. It needs to make the best decisions for the residents, because you can't have everything all the time. But what we have here is a good, sensible budget that I'm proud to move. Jeff seconded it. We're happy to agree it. Thank you. That's agreed. That is agreed. So item 11 is Honeycroft Shelters accommodation site. Paul, that's over to you, isn't it?
So thank you, Chairman. I won't go on at length about Honeycroft. I'm sure you're all aware of the project we're bringing forward there. This is obviously the next step on the due process we need to follow to make this development a reality. So with that, I'll move it as written, Chairman.
Apologies, Michael. It's been moved and seconded. Linda seconded it. We're happy to agree that. Thank you. Sorry. Just turned it off then. Okay, so the next item is yours again, Paul. Updated housing revenue account, business plan and budget.
Thank you. As set out in the report, there has only been some very minor changes since Cabinet considered the earlier forecast at its meeting in December. I therefore won't say much, but it is worth highlighting the summary of some key financial information that is set out as bullet points on pages 130 to 131 of the agenda. As I have mentioned before, maintaining the investment in our tenants' homes is of utmost importance, but we must also need to maximise any financial flexibilities that may emerge to continue to deliver local homes for local people. The HRA business plan therefore aims to balance these two key activities with the need to secure the ongoing financial sustainability of the HRA, which is currently facing some tough challenges. The HRA capital programme also now reflects both the Honeycroft and Spendles house schemes, which are proposed to be funded from capital receipts. As also highlighted within the report, the voices of our tenants are an important element of developing the HRA business plan and budget proposals. Officers are due to meet with our tenants panel in early February, and I look forward to receiving their comments prior to the meeting of full council on 14th of February 2023, where the HRA budget will be presented for consideration. So with those comments, Chairman, I move as written.
Mine's on. Recommendation on page 126. It's been moved and seconded. 7% increase in rents, which again is substantially lower than inflation, but it is a rise. Are we happy to agree? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next item is slightly unusual one. Adoption of a road closure policy. Page 145. Alex, I think that's yours.
Yeah, so we have got a road closure policy. It's a 146-year-old, 176-year-old law. So we thought we'd catch up and put a policy in place after 176 years. The recommendations are on page 146, and it is just simply a policy that allows people to request a road closure. But in the event of things like street parties for the coronation, there won't be a cost with that, but there'll still be a process to go through. So it just puts into place a proper process with the law that we've had for a little while. Yeah, and the recommendations, page 146.
Any comments? Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This was brought up, if I remember, I think Councillor Allen and I discussed this at Resources Service Committee, because there was a policy coming forward for open space policy. And I suggested, and with other I think Councillor Gurris, myself, and I think Councillor Allen, we've talked about maybe merge the policy together about an open space policy with a policy for closure, because some open space is close to roads, like along the Greensward and many of our coastal areas, to have a link together. And I think one of the officers, I can't remember who, said perhaps we should look into that, may have a policy where it's merged together. I understand the reasons behind having it separate, but it may be a good idea to tag on, because I know there's an open space policy coming forward, and this policy about road closure, it would make sense if you work in tandem with that. Councillors on the Resources and Services Committee at the time agree perhaps we should look into that, maybe have it on tandem rather than separate.
Okay.
Thanks for that. You can't have a combined policy because the open space is about our land. Town Police Clauses Act is about any road which needs to be closed and is very specific in terms of it's also different legislation. The up-to-date latest of the 1847 in terms of one of those pieces of that, which was actually, funnily enough, the reason for the 1847 Town Police Clauses Act was a combination of legislation bringing it together in 1847. And that the open spaces has a I didn't like to say, Councillor Toll, but there was a myriad of other things from Spain. What I think you are right about is obviously is that they do need to be thinking about each other and about how that plays, but they can't be one policy. Thank you.
I think we could seek to align the policies. Perhaps
Yes.
that's the sort of
Yes.
the term that we need to look at. But they will, as you say, need to be separate policies. It's a good point, but Terry.
You know, a good opposition looks at any sinew they can pick out of something to bring something up. And I look at the word coronation of our next king, or our king at the moment, I missed it somewhere. Have we got any amount in there for events that this council's going to do? Just as a quickie, is there yes, no? If yes, what officer could I speak to? Thank you.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. We haven't specifically budgeted anything, I don't think. I'm getting a shake of the head from the 151 officer, which means no, we definitely haven't. I got a letter just yesterday from the Secretary of State, Michael Gove, saying that he wants all local authorities to be supportive of celebrations and street parties, not to put any undue bureaucracy or costs in the place of people wanting to have street parties. And I'd hasten to add that we're already well advanced with this. This didn't come around because of his letter. And obviously we make the point in there that we're not going to charge for people having coronation or such street parties. But nevertheless, they would have to make an application. You can't legally just shut a road down, sort of thing. As for the budgetary side of it, I don't know. Mike Bush has asked me whether we'd be able to come up with an amount per member like we did with the Diamond Jubilee. And I'm looking into that. He's only emailed me this week on that one, hasn't he? And I'm very honest about Mike. Yeah, and Ian's very much against it.
I think that we have got a significant amount of savings to find coming up, and yet we're talking about whether we actually fund parties. And I know that may sound harsh, but actually we've got to, that there will be things which are services. We've got to make those decisions for members. At the end of the day, it's for you to decide whether you want to put money in for events, celebrations, or whether or the funding for services. So I think it's a difficult question. What we are paying for effectively is because we're waiving the fees for those parties. So I think that's the difficult decisions members have to make, and that will by far not be the most difficult decision you have to make going into the forthcoming year around savings.
I didn't mean to embarrass anyone with this. It's just I was making inquiries because people do ask us about what you're doing and all that, and I just want an answer. And thank you.
Well, Terry, we were just joking about this because the timing of the coronation, obviously it's a big deal. It's the king getting the crown put on, but it's the Saturday after the local elections, and obviously that's a big deal for us here in Tendring, as it is every other local authority up and down the country that's got elections. But it will also be a big deal for government and for the opposition, because the spotlight will inevitably be falling upon, depending on how the results go, whether the Prime Minister's going to be threatened with, being got rid of, or Keir Starmer, if he doesn't do well enough, will he be threatened? And they'll be sitting there in Westminster Abbey during the coronation, like 2 days after or day after the results have come out, sort of thing. So the timing of it is a bit, I don't think they've thought that through really, but there you go.
Just as a point, Rashid Shamp, all he's got to do is find out if there's any phone boxes where the Conservative councillors can hold meetings after the next election. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So notwithstanding that, don't think there's much more to say on it, is there? You've explained it well enough, Alex. Are we happy to agree that policy? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So the next item, is Linda, COVID-19 Memorial, page 161.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. After the discussion made at the full council meeting in November 2021, the leader informed Cabinet that he had requested me to work with Councillor Mark Stevenson and to think big regarding a COVID-19 memorial and to then report back to Cabinet. With this in mind, a meeting was arranged between officers, myself, Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Gina Lacey. Several ideas had been put forward, and bearing in mind and thinking of examples elsewhere in the country, with the Angel of the North styling being a prime example set before us by the leader, we also considered other ideas for the type of memorial, perhaps a standalone public art piece, a reflection garden, a combination of the two, or a smaller memorial. Bearing many points in mind, there was the need to establish a suitable site for the memorial. After visiting and discussing suitable sites with the head of public realm, it was agreed that Clacton, and as noted in the report, with it having the largest population in the district, was the preferred area. It was therefore agreed that Anglefield could be a potential site, and although the area needed some improvement, it was thought that with its garden area and sea views and having the necessary space, it had the potential to install a memorial. Therefore, Chairman, I propose the recommendations as written on page 161.
Thank you, Linda. Jeff seconded it. Any comments? I'm happy to go straight to the vote on it. All agreed? Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Linda. Item 15 is the Equality and Inclusion Strategy, page 181. Linda, that's you.
So I'll read something out again. Thank you. And if I do lose my voice, can I pass it on to somebody else, please? I'm having a problem. In accordance with the requirements of the Equality Act 2010, all public bodies, including local authorities, are subject to what is referred to as the Public Sector Equality Duty, PSED. This duty requires the public bodies to pay due regard to the following: eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, and other conduct prohibited by the Act. Advance equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not, and foster good relations between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. As part of this PSED, local authorities are required to have and publish their equality and diversity objectives, showing how they will meet these requirements. This equality and inclusion strategy sets out how the tendering district council, the council, will seek to meet its obligations under the PSED over the period of 2023 to 2027. Following the Cabinet's approval of the draft in October 2022 and the completion of the consultation process, this final strategy is submitted to Cabinet with a report for final approval, publication and implementation. Consultation has been carried out with the relevant partner organisations, including Community Voluntary Services Tendering, Citizens Advice Tendering, and the membership of the Independent Advisory Group. The tendering independent community groups, which consist of between 30 to 40. In addition, the strategy was published on the Tendering District Council website, on its consultation page and on the front page of the Council's intranet to encourage staff consultation and feedback. Consultees were provided with a copy of the draft strategy and an explanatory guidance note which covers the purpose of the strategy. Following a request from Citizens Advice Tendering, one additional sentence, number 5, on the strategy document has been added to the section in Objective 1, which reads: communicate updates up to partners concerning and detailing current council strategy and services to enable the provision of a reliable source to which partners can refer. As appropriate, this may be a revised notification to a relevant section within the council's website for information. CAT also commented that they thought it was a very clear and comprehensive strategy. Therefore, Chairman, I would like to propose the recommendations as written on page 182.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Linda. That was seconded. Anyone want to comment on that? We all agreed? That's great. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Linda. The next item is also yours, Linda, isn't it? Page 197, the Anchors Initiative update.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to be able to present the Anchors report, which provides an update on the work undertaken over the past 12 months and the plans for the forthcoming year. To recap, anchor organisations are usually large organisations which are local to place and have the leverage to maximise social value through their role as workplace developers, employers and procurers. Their core business, for example, health and education, and the linkages they have to the place they operate. They are typically large, typically non-profit organisations like hospitals, local councils and universities. The aim of the anchors is to ensure jobs and funding is kept as local as possible to create more local employment opportunities and support the local economy. Over the past 18 months, over 40 anchor organisations have come together across Greater Essex to work together on a number of priorities, including climate action, employability and social value. The Anchors work links to the Council's corporate plan and community leadership. The chairman of the Essex Anchors Initiative is Tendering's Chief Executive, Mr. Ian Davidson. Over the past year, the work of Anchors has fallen into three main categories: employability, climate action and social value. The employability work has included the Anchors collectively pledging £1 million of apprenticeship levy funding to create additional apprenticeships across Essex. Several reverse job fairs have taken place, which provide opportunities for people who may have disabilities entering the workplace and getting jobs. The climate action work has involved training for frontline staff regarding fuel poverty, and the social value work has included the sharing of best practice across the county. Over the next year, there will be further reverse jobs fairs and also the introduction of skills passports. There will be an emphasis on retrofit, and the social value work stream is going to develop baseline information, assess progress across the county. Therefore, Chairman, I recommend the recommendations as on page 197.
Microphone.
Sorry, it's worth pointing out that this is not a tendering initiative. This is an Essex Anchors Initiative. Although the chairman of the Essex Anchors Initiative is this man here, and the vice chairman is Ed Garrett, Chief Executive of the North Integrated Care Board. So Ian, I don't know if you want to say a couple of words on it. You're here.
Thank you. I think it's a fantastic initiative, not least because it talks about keeping the economy of Essex in Essex and keeping the skills of Essex in Essex and creating our opportunities for our young people. And I think that that's whether that's people with challenges or whether we actually just understand the skills opportunities and how we develop them. But also the anchor institutions are public sector organisations who can't necessarily, it's difficult to resource, get to recruit. And so some of that work for the anchor institutions is also is about how we work together to maximise the people who are out there to get them the jobs. Why do we interview in the way that we always have done, which actually is can be quite off-putting for people with challenges. People with autism, which is a group which I've been working around, is about talking about how we make it easier for people to apply for jobs and not create artificial barriers. People with autism, for example, make fantastic employees, and yet sometimes it's not made easy for people to apply, and the way in which people are interviewed is not the way in which they work in the workplace. So how do we change our practices to help people? And that's just one group, but there are a myriad of it. So I think that the other thing with the anchor institutions is, and as Linda alluded to, is that more public sector organisations now across Essex are a member than are not. So there really is some traction, really is some buy-in to it, and the work which we've seen online in terms of the universities coming together to create those opportunities, those reverse jobs fairs, is already making a difference. But we really do need to step it on a pace now to talk about what are the opportunities and how do we maximise the economy of Essex, investing in Essex rather than it going wider. So a lot of work going on, but yes, I think it is something which has had really good traction, buy-in, health, police, fire. So it's not just about local government either.
Speaking in my capacity as the chairman of the Essex Leaders and Chief Executive, it's something we discuss there quite often. We've had presentations, and it is a highly regarded organisation that is quite groundbreaking actually across Essex. And I think we're very fortunate here in this council that, as I say, the chairman of the Essex Anchor Initiative happens to be our chief executive, because it means Ian is sitting down, at the table with some very influential players in the sort of sector, not for profit sector. The universities don't like to be thought of profit sector. I got told off for that one. And it is delivering results. That's the main thing. Delivering results for young people across tendering certainly, and across the wider Essex. So it's a good news thing. So thanks, Linda, for your presentation on that. I'll take any questions, Terry.
Yeah, it's good for the organisations that are anchor organisations, but is there anywhere where people that's not with an organisation at the moment? I've got one resident I'm sort of talks to me about his circumstances. The story is pro COVID. He worked out in the rigs, but he was off when it was shut down. And they couldn't go back, and he hasn't been back since. He's now circumstances, and he can get the same type of work, but for the companies on shore. But of course, in that time period, they have to have certifications. And all them have run out now. So he's saying, I can't afford to be, you've got to go and have all these certificates going, and they've no funds to do it. So that's what I'm looking around now. Is there any organisations? I was going to have a word with Anastasia, if she was known to it, because there's a chap desperate to go to work. He's very skilled, but he can't afford to do the certification.
That's a really good example. Do you want to just comment on?
I would say in terms of detail of that individual case, certainly pick it up with Anastasia. But I think the kind of the principle of what you're talking about is exactly some of those things which are around the anchorage. Is about how with the reverse jobs fairs, for example, how do we create the opportunities for people, and the businesses come to the candidates rather than the candidates going to the business. I'm very happy to kind of talk more about that outside of that and going into detail a bit, because I can bore for England on telling you all about that. So, but it is really some of those keep creating the opportunities for people. Is that it's not a general jobs job centre type of work. It is about how we're creating different opportunities.
Thanks for that. So that was moved by Linda. It was seconded by Paul. We have to agree that a recommendation. Thank you. The only other item we've got on the agenda is the exempt minutes of the meeting on Friday, 16th of December, which I will move the rest of the agenda on block unless anyone wanted to speak to them specifically. Is that okay? Linda's seconding that. Are we happy to agree that? Thanks. In that case, the meeting is concluded and finished. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming and for participating and taking the time. Thank you. See you next time.